Interesting, actually. You talked about a whole bunch of things, which has given a real kind of breadth to what we've been talking about. So the studios that you're in now, then the Grainstore. So just briefly, could you talk us through it from when you first saw this piece of land with these building bits on it and turn it into what it's become, and what the studio is these days?
Okay, when we were in Herefordshire, the house was quite expensive to run, and and the music business is like, you haven't got a guaranteed cash flow, and you're all, particularly with me, I'm working, if I'm working in foreign territories, I'm 2 years ahead of my money. So if I write something today and it goes on television tomorrow, in different territories, I maybe won't get my royalties for 2 years. And then if someone hasn't written the right name down, then you may have to wait another year while you fight it out and say, where's my royalties? So I needed to, and I just needed to have less outgoings. So we sold the house, and I wanted to go down to Cornwall or Devon and be closer to the sea. The thing with Devon and Cornwall, it's really expensive. The closer you get to the sea, it gets expensive. You also get light pollution. You also get more people. And I'm not a great lover of masses of people. I like to be remote. And also in North Devon, you may look at a beautiful house, but you can always hear some kind of road. It's like as if you're close to a motorway or something, that you can't get away from this noise. And I'd vowed never go back to Wales again, because I'd had a lot of great times in Wales, a lot of big business in Wales, but it also held a lot of not so great memories for me. And I kind of wanted to, cut away from that. So Helen, she shows me this picture of this house, and it's got an outbuilding, it's got 14 acres of land, and it's got a river running through the land, which means that that's my water. I need to be near water. And the river, it's a little river, but it goes right outside the front door and doesn't flood. So I said, oh my God, this looks incredible. And it was in our price range. And she said, it's in Carmarthenshire. I thought, oh, is it? Okay, so we'll go down and have a look. Came in, saw the barn, thought that's my studio, saw the land, saw the river, wasn't even interested in the house. The house is not the big thing for me. It's about the other things that raise my spirit. So we went ahead and bought it. The one thing is that the bloke selling to us kept us out of the house for 6 weeks. So I put everything in storage and thought that we'd only be out for 2 days. And we were out for 6 weeks. So we were bouncing around rentals, waiting to get into this place. And we started to explore the Welsh coastline and getting to know the Welsh people. It's all Welsh speaking down here, which is lovely. And, you have to give respect to the, we're non-Welsh people coming into a Welsh speaking. So we're learning a few phrases, and we just want to be part of the community, which is really lovely. It's a farming community.
You want to learn the phrase, Danny. There's a Welsh phrase you should learn. Yeah. Please don't burn my house down.
Which is?
Please don't burn my house down.
Oh, yeah, please don't.
Those days are gone. Those days are gone.
Controversial.
Yes.
So we started to explore the whole of the coastline, Welsh coastline. And because I'd never been down this west before, I never realized how glorious it is. It's like the best countryside in the world. And all this I've been missing, because for me, it was like either the Vale, Porthcawl, or Swansea. I thought that was being near the sea, but it's wonderful down here, and the people are wonderful. There's such an ease of life, and I'm so drawn to it. But when we moved into the house, I had a budget of £20,000 that I was going to spend on the studio, which is not a great deal of money, but for building a studio anyway. But there was so much wrong with the house that my budget got swallowed up in a house, which is why I then had to labour for a local builder. And Helen and I did an awful lot ourselves, just labouring and putting it together. But it's very much part of us. You know, the studio feels, you know, as though we've had something to do with it. And the other thing that's important for a studio for me is I want it to feel like the best place you've ever been. So when I worked in, when I recorded in Rockfield had that real chemistry, that real magic. I love that feeling of it. And Ridge Farm and a couple of other great studios, you just felt creative as soon as you went in there. And I wanted this place to be like that. I've done no soundproofing. It's all just the stone. Wow. And the room sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I noticed with the video with Lynn Phillips, he was in the live room, and you can just imagine that beautiful kind of natural reverb you're going to get.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and the room is big enough to take, you know, 7 or 8 musicians, you know, comfortably. There's a drum area where I've got the drum kit set up, a piano, a Hammond organ, which is great, and it's, you know, when artists come down, they love it. We've had a couple of artists that have been here that won't allow me to put any social media up. I like to sort of like let people know who's been down here. A couple of people won't have that, and you know, we respect their privacy, you know, because they don't want people knowing that they're in Wales or whatever at that time. But you know, and I find that interesting, and we put them up in the house. So we can be residential. We have 3 rooms in the house, and Helen does all the catering and the bed and breakfast side, and we just try and make it like this family, you know.
Sounds absolutely beautiful. Fantastic. What a great lifestyle. I'm envious of you getting that together. But however, you have come through, as we all have, this ridiculously difficult trying period, you know, the kind of the lockdown period. You said you're quite busy at the moment, but you know, how has it been for you coming through that, and how do you see things moving forward?
Okay, I've got a couple of views on this. Obviously my business stopped as well. I'm fortunate to have royalties, so the royalties will keep me going through the non-earning period. But now we're, you know, so some studio work has come in, and I'm working with artists, so that's kind of bread and butter stuff. When we first got down into lockdown, I came up with this idea, and maybe I'm too early, or maybe I've got it wrong completely. Only other people can tell me. But I do some work with a streaming company, and they're high-end streaming, so it's, you know, HD, correct sound and everything like that. So after the first 2 or 3 weeks of lockdown, I thought to myself, there's going to be a lot of older people who buy tickets for shows and things, for legacy artists. They're going to think twice about going back out. They're not going to want to be in a crowded theatre. Younger people, you know, I think it'll go back to some kind of normality. But at the moment, there's no shows doing. And so I wanted to do streaming, but do streaming like, it would be a performance like the old grey whistle test. Do you remember the old grey whistle test?
Yes.
I say this to younger people, and they don't know what I'm talking about. So, yeah. But it's where it's an intimate studio performance. So it's not like you're not in a living room on an iPhone, and you know, and it's crap sound. You hire a place, something like a cappella could do it. So you've got no audience. You have a legacy act, like supposing you had Yes, so you could say to Yes, right, you know, they have like millions of supporters over the globe, and you say to those supporters, would you pay £10 for an exclusive show with Yes, like an old grey whistle test, performing. They could just be round a circle. It's very intimate. Would you pay £10 a ticket for that? And of course, many of them would. Then would you pay an early bird ticket where you pay extra money and then you can chat to Yes while they're performing? You've got a chat line, so you're getting fans talking to each other. You're building up a base of what people like and what they don't like. So that's a band like Yes performing. Then another area, you then have a band that's gigging. The band that's lost its income completely by gigging, no income whatsoever. And you either have them on a donate button so that they can get some income from that and it's not disturbing Yes's income. And then you have another area where you have new music that hasn't been discovered. And that's with a donate button. Now, the idea that I had was that it would be a large band supporting a gigging band and giving them a platform, who are then giving a person who's got no chance of getting into the business, you give them all an opportunity to earn. I thought it was a great idea. I got in touch with a guy who writes for The Guardian, and he thought it was a great idea as well. And I'd done the deal with the streaming company, and you would bring in a team of 4 or 5 cameras, live vision mixers, and you would do the show in a great quality. So he said it was a great idea. Now, I rang Jeff Downs from Yes. I said, Jeff, do you think Yes would be interested in this? He said, sounds like a good idea, Dan, but I'll have a word with the guys and I'll have a word with the manager. So a week later, Jeff got back and he said, do you know, Dan, we're not going to do it. We don't, the management, we don't quite see it. And obviously, several of them live in the States. So I could see it would be, quite a feat for them to put it together. So I said, okay. So then I thought, but I still think it's a great idea. I'd seen that Genesis had, they had sold out one arena, but then had half the tickets returned by people thinking, I don't want to go to the next show because, COVID's still around. And Steve Hackett isn't in Genesis, but Steve Hackett does great business. So I know John, his brother. So I rang John up and I said, do you think Steve would be interested in this? He said, oh, I'll ask him. I'll get Steve to get in touch with you. So I explained to Steve what it was. I said, the Steve Hackett band, even if you have 30,000 people paying £10, that's still a great payday. And you're in one venue. You're not touring or anything like that. And he came straight back and he said, no, I'm a bit busy at the moment. I like the idea, but it's not going to work for him. So I'm now flailing around thinking, this idea just doesn't work. So I then got in contact with the manager of Caravan, because Caravan is still touring. And he got straight back to me. He said, this is a brilliant idea. He said, this is just what we need to do. I'll speak to the band about it. And that was about 3 months ago, and I haven't heard a Dickie Bird since.
Wow.
But it
seems like a no-brainer, Obvious.
It does. But to me, it does. But
yeah.
I can't understand. I don't think people can get their heads around that it's a different performance. It's it's not you're not wearing your bell-bottom trousers and coming out and going. You are having to perform in a different way. It's
I love all that.
But it's a different way of performing, and I still think it has legs. But
yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea.
Good idea.
Tony is obviously running Keep Cardiff Live, and we talk about ideas all the time. And of course, Acapella is not that far from us. It's a lovely venue. I can see why you choose it. It's so kind of photogenic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So it could work. I don't know, Tony, do you want to come on that at all?
Yeah, I say that we were thinking of doing something a cappella last year, a similar sort of thing with a heritage artist. because that's a perfect setup for it, because there's a studio there as well.
Yeah.
And the idea was to film it. So I think your idea is brilliant, Danny, but I think there's a lot of these ideas around, but it just doesn't seem that it's gelling. I mean, another thing is like Daryl's house in America, which has been going for a long time. That kind of works, and I think he did it.
It does.
He did it really originally on YouTube, and then I think it went to MTV and stuff. So that really worked.
Yeah.
But of course, he's got the pulling power. He's got the contacts, and he did it. And also, he had the illness, which made him have to do it as well. He had Lyme disease.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of good ideas out there, and to me, this is the way it's going to go. It's going to have to go that way. I really can't see sort of people of my age, Steve age, going to a lot of gigs. And I used to go along to a lot of gigs and photograph them and stuff as well. But, you're going to be nervous about it. And also it's not going to be quite the same with the way it's going to be segregated and partitioned off. And, I don't think you're going to get that sort of mosh pit atmosphere unless you're young, and maybe if you're young, you'd have a different attitude.
Yeah, you're right.
So I think your idea is brilliant, and I think it is going to work. It's just finding the right way for it to work. You can have maybe a few people say no, but I think it's a great idea. You should pursue that more.
So
I'm gonna keep. All I need is one artist to say yes. The thing is, you have to build a paywall so that when people, buy their tickets, they come to the paywall. So there's a bit of technology behind it, but do you know what? It isn't a big deal. You just need someone to say, I'll give it a go. But you know what? The one thing it does mean, though, is it means that the artists will find their true worth, because when I've done promotion in the past. So you'll promote a band and you'll get to their agent will say, well, they want 75,000. And you think, well, I've seen them gigging and, they're not worth 75,000, meaning that they don't bring in 75,000 pounds worth of people. And then as you go down the chain, say, to a band like Sweet, who I booked in the past, and they are fantastic, but it's only, is it Andy left? The guitarist, but they are incredible. And, but they're only worth the amount of people, providing you promote correctly, their only worth is the amount of people that come in and pay that money. Yeah. And of course, with the streaming, it's not me saying, hey, I'm going to pay, this band, £100,000 to go and stream. It's going to be using their fan base. And I think that sometimes that can be frightening, because in the end, it's like, oh my God, how popular are we? And of course, you're going to know by how many people buy the tickets.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there might even ultimately be some sort of, at the level you were talking about there, Danny, with the sound quality and the visuals and the right setting, a really quite a good lineup of almost like a festival, You could do, couldn't you? You could do that. Maybe if you had two stages, maybe that would work better. But and maybe slightly larger venue. But I don't see why that wouldn't work. But in terms of you and the Grainstore and where you're going, you're actually quite busy, aren't you? So, has there been any surprises which maybe you would say have been slight fringe benefits of what's going on? Is there anything good come out of this at all?
For me, I think it settled my psyche on the people I want to work with, and I'm not going to waste my time anymore. So I'll only work with people that there's two sets of people. The people who are going to pay the money and the people I want to work with and enjoy being in their company. And so, because now, at my age now, I'm 66 now. I don't want to waste a minute of my life. I don't know how long I've got. And my life is my life here in Carmarthenshire with Helen and music. Music is all encompassing, and I will always be involved in music, just before they burn me in a tree or whatever. But so I think it settled me in that way. I think after 15 weeks, I started getting stir crazy because I love working with artists. I love working collaboratively, you know, so that's important to me.
Yeah.
What about you? Have you found it of any benefit to you two?
Well, Tony might want to answer that. When you think it might be an answer there?
I mean, in terms of the website and Keep Cardiff Live, one thing that has worked really well is this Zoom facility, you know. So, you know, we had Steve and myself had a little talk about it because we were setting lots of stuff up within Cardiff, which would have been live events or would have been maybe doing podcasts from a studio, that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden it just stopped dead, you know, apart from my business as well, you know, which is involved in music, just stopped dead. So we were left with a lot of time on our hands. And we had this sort of discussion, thought, well, loads of musicians, loads of people in the music industry are going to be in the same situation. They're going to be available. So we started just making up a list of people we wanted to talk to, we found interesting, or were involved in the Cardiff scene or involved in music in general. And so it did benefit us from that point of view, is that people were available and they wanted to talk. You know, a lot of them were going stir crazy. You know, I think we all were. So that was an advantage from that point of view. But for our future projects and stuff, it is restrictive. You know, if we want to do something live, then, you know, that's pretty much out in its old format. But it's made us kind of think out of the box a bit, you know. And I think that's what a lot of musicians are having to do, is to think, well, how can I get this to work? How can I do this? So it was good from that point of view, but particularly with the podcast that we're doing, and, you know, and also like yourself, having an interview with yourself and lots of the musicians and producers. I mean, Greg Havers, we spoke to in New Zealand, that was fantastic. And to get their opinions as well. It's really worked well from that point of view, and hopefully it'll continue. So it did bring about a bit of an interaction because of the restrictions of COVID. Yeah, definitely.
I think that in life you have to adapt, and I've had to adapt to the music industry, and what happens with a lot of the older artists, a lot of the older legacy artists I work with, they don't know how it's changed. They can't understand how it's changed.
No,
Get a record company. You know, what's Bandcamp? Bandcamp just looks like selling to your mates. It doesn't have that you know, that huge machine behind it. What do you mean I've got to do social media? What are you talking about? And, you know, these guys have lost it. The other thing, and this comes back to the recording, is that you are now getting people who file share. Now, I've got no issues with file sharing, but the reason I have to have a separate studio is that if you've got a guitarist, you know, because I know what it's like when I had a studio in the house years ago. It's like you're working on something. It's like, oh, Danny, can you put the bins out? And it's like, you know, I'm halfway. I've got an idea. You know. Oh, remember they're coming for lunch. And now I find that, you know, guitarists are kind of doing their solo on their way to the bathroom to clear out the bloody washer or whatever. And you don't have that where it's purely creative. You know, you're in a room that no one's going to disturb you. No one's going to tap that door and say, take the bins out, because it's work, it's business. And, you know, you get a lot of people who will like overdo their parts of a track because they haven't worked it out in the studio with another guy and said, look, oh, if I play that chord, can you do that? So you just get this bundle of files that have sometimes been badly engineered, because, you know, I've been presented with a lot of stuff, and I've had guys come down and they said, look, you know, we've done this, you know, can you mix it? And I look at it and I think, God, no, you know, I'd have to take all that shit off first before we even get to the song, you know. And so, you know, I know I'm being harsh.
That's the last time I'm sending you anything. That's the end of my career, man.
It is true, though. I think that I think what we're all missing is that interaction. It's like when you get 4 musicians in a room, you're guaranteed some really dodgy jokes, you know, and some,
Yes.
some interesting stories about, well, I remember this guy. This happened like 10 years ago. And then when you get down to the music, it's where the magic happens, isn't it? Because you'll play something, and then someone else will say, "That's a great idea, but why don't we try this?" And instantly you think, "I hate him because he's trying to change what I've just created." And then when you do it, you think, "Actually, I love him because he's a genius." So there's always that symbiosis going on with musicians, that that this interaction. And we're all a little bit precious what we're playing, but when we get together, something magical happens, and the ideas bounce around, and that's when you get something that is really interesting. Yeah.
It does. And just to sort of finish up on that point, is that everyone has the same software these days, and everyone has the same sounds. So when I'm doing anybody that comes here, with the Hammond, right? Do you know they're an incredible set of Hammond samples that you can get from anywhere, and any instrument sample. They're fantastic, wonderfully recorded, beautiful. But my grubby little Hammond in there, you put a mic in front of it and it sits in the mix, and it coughs and spits. But that is the magic. And you get real drums, and they're not as clean sounding as those ones on the sample, or from, Ultimate Drum Player or whatever it is. Or you get a banjo player in that, sometimes he's like squeezing some of the strings, or they pinch, but you don't get that on a banjo sample.
No.
You get beautiful clean, and everything's so clean, and then becomes smaller, and you only have to have 5 live instruments that have had a mic in front of them on a track, and they fill this track with great stuff. And it's my other pet hate is engineers. Engineers are always like, "Oh, compression. Oh my God, I am tired of that word. Should he use more compression?" What are you talking about? I get a vocalist in there. I never put a vocalist through compression, because you're changing the sound immediately. And once it's gone onto tape or the DAW, there's nothing you can do about it. So I do everything without compression, even drums. And people are horrified by it. But then I'll maybe compress a little coming out. But I just want to get the pure sound onto the system. So, everything is so compressed these days. You get waveforms that are like blocks, no dynamics. I'm on a soapbox. I'm going to shut up.
Well, it's a very entertaining soapbox. It's been a great conversation. It's really, really interesting to hear. I've learned loads about you that I didn't even know, to be honest, Danny. I know you've done a lot, but I've learned loads. I'm really happy that you found this place, the Grainstore, and it seems to be going so well for you. Looks like a beautiful location, and
It is,
great for you.
It's great. And thank you for that, Stephen.
No,
I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks to both of you. And how come it took you so long to find me?
Well, you're at Carmarthenshire, come on.
We got a bit lost.
Yeah, we went down the wrong lane. But just to say a couple of things, if there's anything you want to promote at any stage, or any of the acts you're working with, and by all means, please, come back to Keep Cardiff Live, and we're happy to do any stuff for you. Have a look around the site as well, because there'll be loads of people on there you'll know. I mean, Di Shell was on there the other week. He was absolutely fantastic.
I saw that, and well, God, Di Shell, fantastic.
Wales is a relatively small place, I suppose, but there's enough really interesting characters in there with stories about music to make it really, really worthwhile.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I love being here, Steve, and I've got a lot of great friends here, and I also admire what you guys are doing, because it's coming back from that kind of roots level, and starting from scratch. And it's that old thing, and build it and they will come. And it's like you're becoming a lifeline to artists, and artists need loads of outlets.